inside this there is a central peak and some other relatively small craters. At the center of the square there is this crater, I think the youngest in this image, with a very flat floor and a very prominent rim with a two part, inner part and out part. And in the northwest part, there is these channels, I think lava channels, with another small crater. And in the upper part, north part, there are these 4 or 5 line structure, maybe some chain of crater, secondary crater from some impact more south. And there are other 2 line structure at the center of the Maria that I interpreted like the central peak of this big crater. So this is our tiles. There is some questions.
Well, thank you, Francesco. Our group has discussed already a lot of what came when. So is anyone willing to give a little insight on what we talked about in terms of timing in this area?
I can explain timing too, or maybe some other would like to speak. Okay. The older crater is this very big crater. I don't remember the names, so really sorry. The second one is this other crater, the second figure inside. And after this event, there is the formation of this bigger crater on the upper right. And after this, all of the big crater and this second crater are flooded with the magma, and there is the formation of there was the formation of the Maria. After that, there is the formation of this last crater that is formed on top the rim of this big crater here, and this crater make like the other some flat bottom and a lot of secondary crater and the ejecta in this crater here, this crater at the right, and this part of the soil in the left. So yes.
Yeah, great. So we for this tile we looked at the cross-cutting relationships of the craters. So we saw that some of them cross-cut each other. So from there, we determined which one came first and which one came later. And that's what Francesco just explained. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and sorry for my English.
No, it's fine. That's all very good and understandable, I think. I've seen this tile now a lot, so if anyone has another question to that, but we could just go ahead and look at the next tile if you want to. So we had someone offering from group 3, I think.
Yep.
That's great.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we see.
Yeah, so we are the top left quadrant. We have quite a few impacts, a couple of composite impacts, a lot of simple craters scattered around, a few secondary impacts and craters in the green. All this over here is highlands, and then we have the plains over here, which forms part of a much larger structure. There's a couple of different textures within these planes that I try to delineate, where you have kind of coarse texture of a main system here, and then you have much smoother areas in this, I call it the Mare basalts. So you have smoother here, smoother here, smoother here, and then a couple of flows. There weren't many Copernican impacts, only a couple. So there were a couple strewn fields that I picked up from there, another one up here and over there, but mainly I think most of them were Imbrian, the blue ones, with older ones here with Nectarian, and then this one's also Nectarian, but it has an outer rim and then a central basin with a peak in the middle. To the bottom right, you just see the edge of this much larger impact structure, much older impact structure. So you just pick up the rim, and yeah, there's a couple of lineaments coming through here, which I forgot to turn on. Oh, I didn't mark those. There's a couple of lineaments going through here, a couple through here, which I thought possibly were wrinkle ridges. This feature here, which I'm not too sure. And then there's a bit of a flow going down there. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Looks really good. So you already assigned some ages to your craters. How did you determine the ages for which one is Imbrian and which one might be Nectarian?
I thought the oldest ones that I could see here on the edges, and these ones in the light beige, you can barely see, and they really have inferred contacts. Some of them are extremely, I don't want to say weathered, but degraded. And then they are superimposed by all these other ones which are much better defined. But none of them have strewn fields apart from three. It's one on the top right here and two in the bottom, which I remember are only the extremely young ones, which were Copernican. I think beyond that, I couldn't really give much of an age.
Yeah, some excellent observations. Did everyone agree with your interpretation of that area, or what did the rest of your group think?
We didn't really have much of a discussion, so if anybody else could chime in, that would be ideal.
Right, so is there anyone else from group 3 here that might want to give a counter offer for the interpretation of the area?
Well, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Do I share?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, are you seeing that?
Thank you, Leonidas. This was really an excellent map for the time you had. So, and thank you for showing it.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I have some difference with my colleague only because of some other units that I found, or at least I think they are different units, because here the cratering is a little different than this side that comes from the outpouring of the inner crater here. And here I marked some hammocky material on the side and some swirls, remnants.
Okay, great. How do you think those homogeneous material formed that you mapped out there?
I think or is a landsliding of the rim material, or is during the impact, these impact remnants of impact melt, but I don't see if they are really overlaying, but I think so. So maybe it's a landsliding.
Mhm. And I see your infill of the smaller crater there. Oh, you have a very detailed look on that smaller crater. Okay. What is the timing of your craters? Do you have a?
Yeah, I have.
Sorry, I don't see the.
Yeah, I have a little different timing, but it was just an estimate, as my colleague said. I thought this was younger than the other ones because, and I put it in Imbrian because the rim is very. I can tell very well where the rim is, and also the morphologies are well delineated. So EC stands for Imbrian, so I put it on Imbrian.
Okay, so the green unit is then older or younger than your pinkish ones?
This I think I misnamed this. I think they are older, this one.
Okay, they appear on top of your green crater ejecta. So for me, at least, that would be an indicator of those smaller ones being younger. So if you have your crater.
These ones?
Yes.
Ah, yeah, okay, sorry, younger, no, not ancient, yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't it kind of look like the one that he's pointing to right now is cut in half by that crater, though? By the green crater?
Can you turn off your map so we can see the back image for a second?
Ah, okay.
And maybe the line work so we see.
This, do you want me to only show the work?
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
See what you're saying. So you're saying that the rim was there, but it's slumped in along with all the other terraces there.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Okay, can you just show us the full map again and zoom out maybe that we can see all of it? There's a lot of detail. Okay, great. Did anyone have another comment on this map? Because we have someone else from group 3 who offered to show. So we have actually another comparison to those maps, and maybe there's another interpretation in there too. Thank you for sharing that map.
Thanks to you.
Looks really good. So Hector, if you want to share your map.
Yes, sure. So let me share. Can you see me? The screen?
Now we see you.
All right. So I think the most obvious feature here is like we are also on the third group, and is like the big crater rim from the Mare Ingi. So I think this shows the highland feature here and the more crater basin region that is here. And we can see that there are different units, at least on this lower right section. This section here, the purple, let's say, the light purple, is like more on the crater rim area of the things. And then when you move westwards or innerwards, depending how you see it, you can see that there are some more a bit more different structure morphology that's more like going transition zone more to like a Mare material, that sometimes it might be related into secondary deposits of volcanism of Mare material or other melts. This area here shows to be a bit more strange. Maybe the limits are not completely perfect, but you can see that it's more like an eject material from another area, like from here, as it is crater here close. And then you have some pools of material that is melt material, especially this one here might have come directly from this area here where there is like a canal, which might have been transferring some melt material, because as we can see here, we are seeing some indication that there may be some smooth material that may indicate some melt flowing down here. Then we have this area here was more hilly than this area, than the areas around them. Also, all the way here, which is like the crater rim from this big crater here. This is less a hill, but then in those here, but then don't know for what reason. Then, as it was described to me, this looks like to be a crater chain, as well as something like here. Well, not completely chain, but like similar to that, and most likely like a chain looks this structure here. Then when we go here, we can see this is like the basic crater, and which has a hill, a two-hill uplift and the hill inside. And this area here is more like a secondary feature made from a landslide, because the crater rim should be around here then initially, and then some other feature, maybe this impact here has formed like a ridge here that is like a landslide. And then, as was mentioned by the previous colleagues, then you have older material that like those here, but the feature here, here, and here, and here seem to be even more or less eroded. So they seem to be even. So these are the first, the younger ones. These are the second, and then this is like on the same age as those ones, and then you have the third age of crater, which are the smaller ones, and also this can be correlated to the solar system chronology, like the late heavy bombardment, which should have formed these big craters, and then the others should have been formed with smaller meteoroids and falling. So I think this is most of the work I have done, and I'm free for comments and notes.
Okay, well, looks great, and we can see that you have at least in the inner side of your Mara unit, a very different interpretation than the ones that came before you, where you have, I think, a little bit more units than others before you. But I want to just say you have to be careful, and I think that goes for everyone, if you name your units, because I think, oh, there's no color. Hang on. That unit and that unit, and there was one more somewhere. That one is probably the same, but you spelled it different. That's why it makes different.
Yeah, there had some actual issues with those things, and tried to figure them out, because they had too many indicators and they got lost at some point.
So you just have to be careful, because there's and that's not for calling you out, but I think that's something that happens very easily to other people as well. You have to name them the same thing so that the program will identify them as the same thing.
I had them the same name, and I had some issues because it changed interchangeably, and it got a bit messy. So this is actually what I'm trying to figure out now.
Yeah, you only had a very limited time, so it's amazing what great maps you all produce. So don't worry about it. It's just something to keep in mind. Okay. Any comments on that? If anyone wants to say something to that? Other than it looks great, I guess. Okay, so thank you everyone who has already shared.
Welcome.
Sorry?
Welcome.
Oh, sorry. Okay, and is there anyone from group 2 maybe that wants to share now that I've seen?
Yeah, I'm happy to share mine.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Hopefully you can see that.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Right, yeah. So in this quadrant, I mean, I've basically tried to judge things more on the morphology and not go too much into all the different ways that things have been formed. So obviously in this Mare area in the northeast, I really have just split it into a sort of rougher, more sort of hummocky area in that darker blue, and then the lighter blue, the much smoother Mare area, rather than sort of splitting the rough area into anything, you know, more of a subsection. In terms of the crater materials, I think the most difficult thing I found, because I'm used to mapping Mercury, which I think seems to be a bit easier judging the crater degradation than on the moon. So found it pretty challenging to sort of judge the actual ages of the crater materials. But in terms of superposition, obviously we've got the large sort of crater wall on the outside, which I'm judging to be probably the oldest feature there, and I've judged it to be Nectarian. But you've also got the craters on the rim. So although they're superimposed, I can't distinguish any separate crater materials there. So I've just kind of left that as being sort of all roughly the same kind of age, but obviously newer craters because they are superimposed, but with the same sort of age. And then craters, looking at sort of the sort of Imbrian craters, the ones that appear a little newer. So down here in particular, judge those as perhaps Imbrian and Eratosthean or Teratosthenian craters, sort of slightly newer ones. So ones maybe where we can see the crater walls a bit fresher in this sort of green. Maybe the odd little central peak still sort of there as well. I couldn't see much Copernican stuff. I'm judging. It was hard to see with some of the smaller craters what could be Copernican or not. So I did judge there's a crater here that I felt I could see the ejector blanket a bit more clearly. So I felt maybe that was sort of more sort of Copernican, maybe. In terms of the plains materials or the highlands materials, again, that was kind of the Mare materials here. That seemed fairly simple, but going outside of there, trying to judge what was maybe highland material or plains materials is quite challenging. There's definitely a smoother morphology in these areas here, whereas much rougher in these orange areas down here. I judge the interior of these older craters to be similar to that kind of plains material. That I'm not sure about. That was more a sort of judgment call, because they could be similar to the Mare materials here as well. But I've labeled them as plains material. I couldn't really see a huge amount of tectonic activity in this area. I couldn't see any obvious rills. I couldn't see any wrinkle ridges that were obvious. What there's a lot of secondary crater chains. I think from this crater up here, it would appear. They all seem to come from here. And they're marked in that kind of spotted feature, that sort of spotted unit there. And there is also an awful lot of the sort of swirling, the sort of high albedo swirling, which if I switch off, it's really obvious on the map here, on the image. So I've mapped that as a surface feature, a kind of pinky spotted surface feature. It seems to be more in the smooth Mare than it is in this sort of hummocky area up here. And that's pretty much it. The rest of it was just essentially crater walls that I've judged basically the usual. Anything over about 20 kilometers I've marked with those, and the smaller craters just with the plain line. That's about it.
Right, so obviously you're a bit more experienced in mapping and you have already all the crater rims in there. Don't worry if any one of you watches this and has done his first map or something. We did not expect you to put in all those features. It's very nice. So what are the different, sorry, I missed that maybe, the different 2 units on the floor of the Mare, the blue and the lighter blue?
Yeah, I just judged it with smoother and more sort of rough,
Okay,
hummocky.
yeah.
That was all really.
Yeah, very nice approach and going more on the geomorphological side. I think this is really intimidating to follow, but is anyone brave enough to show his or her map of the, I think this is group 2, right? So we have a comparison.
Okay, I can try.
Yeah,
Even
go ahead.
though after Mark, it will be very tough.
Don't worry about it. I mean, this is just for trying out mapping, and some people might come in with more experience, so don't worry about your map. And thank you, Mark.
Okay. Does anyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so oops. Okay, so just to start, I found very hard to distinguish the age of the craters, so maybe I did many mistakes, but anyway. Okay, so we've got this very smooth part, and also a little bit depressed with no, wait, I don't want to say, yeah, a little bit depressed with respect to the other parts of the area, which is some like of basalt mare, and we can see not every feature was colored in the correct way, but these are swirls, are lighter stuff within this black, anyway, darker albedo basalt, and we've got these trails, which are secondary crater linements, and here we also got these portions which are portions of old craters which have been partially filled with basalts, and we've got these smooth elevated portions inside this basalt mare, which I interpreted as volcanic domes, but they may be not. I'm not very sure. And we've got lots of small, well-defined craters, which I interpreted as Copernican craters, and some bigger but well-defined craters, which I interpreted as Eratosthenian craters. And then we got this crater wall, the old crater wall, and we turned to a highland, very rugged highland, in which we can recognize some very old craters, which are interpreted as nectarian craters, with some smoother parts in their interior, which I interpreted it as how is it called, Imbrian mare, but they may be wrong. And these features, I interpreted them as Imbrian craters, because they are quite defined and they are filled with smoother material at the bottom. And that's it, pretty much all that I could find. It's not very much, but if you have comments.
I see you have put quite a lot of work in it, and it's looking very good. Don't be intimidated by someone who is more experienced than you. You have certainly put a lot of thought in it. So, so in your map, you have way more Copernican craters or craters that you interpret to be really young, right? So, and your criteria for determining that it's Copernican crater was what exactly?
I asked it also, but even though they explained me how to do it, I was not very able to define that. But if I remember well, they should have the scoria, the ejecta around the crater, if I remember well. Is it right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
we would expect ejecta,
Okay.
we would expect maybe rays. I was just wondering how you, for yourself in this way, so how do you say this is a Copernican crater and this is an Eratosthenian crater?
Yes, sometimes I guessed.
Okay.
I must admit.
No, that's fine. You had very limited time. I'm not trying to push you out on the spot or anything. I'm just trying to make you think about while you're mapping, you have to have like kind of like a road in your head and where you want to go and what is going on. So you think about it, and yeah, but looks really good.
Okay.
Anyone else wants to say something about one of those maps or wants to share their map from group 2? Okay, it doesn't look like it. So that leaves us with the last group, which is group 1. It should have been probably the first group. But is there anyone from group 1 still here and might be kind enough to share his or her map so we can have the full extent of our region? Yes, please. Yes, Francesco, please go ahead. We cannot hear you if you're talking.
All right. Sorry, I forgot the microphone. All right. I was saying I'm one of the less expert, I think, so I'm giving a try to it. I'm of group 1, and we had this side of the basin, the Guinea Basin, so it has got all the rim around, and I interpreted the structures as material of the Guinea Basin that was formed after the southern impacts that we see over here. And in the side, we have got many craters and ejecta from bigger craters here that are coming in. So in reddish color, we have got the Guinea Basin material. This is all the same Guinea Basin material, but just was a bit different, like if it was remanaged after other impacts. And I interpreted this as a basalt, smooth, dark feature with lighter features, brighter here, here, and here. And I was seeing craters that are very well formed very younger craters with the center peak, the floor well exposed, while older craters have got even talus material inside and are smoother on the edge. And we have got formations here that are dark and smooth, while this other material here is very rogue. And I saw it just like being very different. That's why I sang it in another way. And most of the names I gave are just like Guinea basin material, crater material, talus, and dark smooth material for this ones, or bright smooth material for this ones. I didn't go very inside the geology, but more superficially trying to identify the structures in the area. And I think that for me, this is more or less what I've been doing.
Looks really good. Can you zoom out a little bit so we can see the full extent again?
Sorry, could you repeat slower, please?
Can you just zoom out a little bit so we see your full map? Yes. Okay, so you also went on morphology, right?
Yes.
Mostly, which is a very good way. And can you tell me, are all those yellowish units the same?
This ones?
Yes.
Oh, more or less, yes. I've been having some mistakes here where I had a double pass and he says that is all the rest. But this must be reddish and not yellow. This yellow is not the same material as inside here. Here I was indicating the wall of the crater. And in this case, instead, I was indicating a ejecta of this crater, I think, that is just like pronounced in this direction. While here I was indicating the Guinea material, but I had problems, as you can see here, of double crossing, and I lost the coloring.
Okay, so you have some problems, but you have a good start and you have a lot of, so you would now go in and sort of clean out your products. And I see this rim, some rims are a little bit more better defined than others, but that's all due to timing. I'm very sure that there's a lot of nice lines in there.